It was the dawn of the third age of podcasting, 30 years after the series had launched.
The Babylon Podcast was a dream given form. Its goal, to discuss the place where humans and aliens could work out their differences peacefully.
It's a port of call, home away from home for established fans, newbies, John, Blaine, and guests.
Humans and aliens wrapped in 2,500,000 tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night.
It could be a dangerous place.
Wait, what?
But it's our last, best hope for peace.
This is the story of the last of the Babylon stations.
The year is 2024.
The name of the podcast is
Babylon 5, 30 years later.
Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of Babylon 5, 30 years later. This is the podcast that is recapping every episode and tie-in adventure of the 90s hit drama science fiction series, Babylon 5. And we're doing each one 30 years after it was released. And today we're talking about War Without End Part 2. But we are not I. We are myself, John Wilson, and my friend Blaine Dowler. Hello, Blaine.
Hello, John. How are you doing?
I am doing all right. I was really not sure if we were going to be able to get this done, so I was going to consider having us recording this 4 years ago, but I'm glad we're getting it done today.
Yes. Yeah, if you'll excuse me, I'm a little tipsy. I find if I just drink enough, I can put my keeper to sleep, and then I can, actually be my own person and make my own decisions.
Yes, and who your keeper is a conversation that we're going to have. But before we get to that, War Without End Part 2 was aired on the 20th of May, 1996, which is why this podcast episode is dropping on the 20th of May, 2026, if all goes according to plan. J. Michael Straczynski was, of course, the writer, and Michael Behar was the director. 2 episodes in a row. We kind of talked about what would be involved with him directing 2 episodes of television in a row last week, because that is rather unusual in the Western/American style of TV production. And let's see, people who are in this.
Oh,
Michael O'Hare is of course back as Jeffrey Sinclair, Ambassador Jeffrey Sinclair, and another role that we're going to talk about.
and before you get too much into the IMDb, we should point out, last time we said it would be safe to go on. This time, if you just look at the main page on IMDb, it's safe. If you jump into all cast and crew, there is a spoiler that we forgot last time. At least in the initial recording we made, drop in a little bit saying, yeah, it's not actually safe to read the full Part 2 list until the season finale.
Although we assume that if you're listening to this episode, you've already seen the episode, so.
Yeah, but the IMDb reveals, at one point in the episode, Delenn sees a flash of the future.
Oh, that's right. There is a mystery. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Yes. If you are listening to this and you have seen the episode, and you have not gone into the Internet Movie Database page yet, don't do it. There's a mystery character who is not revealed in this episode, but they are revealed on the Internet Movie Database page. So, yeah. That being said, Tim Choate is back as Zathras. Kent Broadhurst and Bruce Morrow are back as Babylon 4 characters. And thinking back real quick in my brain, did they film new footage or were they just being reused in Babylon Squared footage?
They did both, depending on the shot and whether or not the shot they needed this time around existed from last time.
Right, because this episode does integrate a lot of footage from Babylon Squared in season 1 very seamlessly, I thought. I mean, if you're nitpicky and careful, you can probably tell that the, costume and hair and makeup and everything is a little bit different. People do get older in the space of 2 years, but I thought it was rather well done.
Yeah, they went to great lengths to deconstruct and reconstruct parts of the set because they realized, the way they had it set up before wasn't great, so they built it differently, but that meant the lighting changed, so they had to take it back apart and put the old inferior versions back in to keep the lighting consistent. So, yeah, pretty much the one thing that they couldn't keep completely consistent. So there's, as you said, people age, and the other issue is Jameis isn't entirely sure, but he's fairly confident that they'd actually lost the original Zathras coat and had to recreate it from scratch. So there may be some differences there. But yes, they went to deconstructing and reconstructing parts of the sets when they were using like a redress of the B5 corridor for the B4 corridor. That is a level of attention to detail most shows would not have done.
Right. Okay. So I do have a written version of the recap here, and I try to not use other sources directly without giving credit. So I just want to say thank you to the writers of the Babylon 5 fandom page, because I am going to be paraphrasing from their summary of the episode, because I meant to write one down. Often I recap from memory. I meant to write this down because it's a very detailed episode, and I did not have the chance to do that. So I'm using their written version as a basis. So, yes, we pick up immediately where we left off on Centauri Prime in the future. John Sheridan is facing off with the now Emperor, Londo Mollari, who tells Sheridan that it is 17 years since he began his crusade with the Shadows. We're going to come back to that word crusade because that's kind of a key word in Babylon 5 lore. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. Anyways, he reveals it is the year 2278. He is definitely very sick. He orders Sheridan to be taken to a cell before he is executed. We go back to the past. Babylon 4 is trying to repair the damage from the electromagnetic pulse that was caused by the destruction of the Shadows bomb earlier last episode. They realize that someone is trying to sneak in while they're blind. Elsewhere, Susan Ivanova is explaining to Marcus Cole that they need to locate an access panel. Since the station is just coming online, there are probably some access panels that are not sealed yet. But then Ivanova looks on and realizes that she's alone. She's like, oh, great. And 2 members of B4 security are in her path. So they don't recognize Ivana. She's not even wearing a Babylon uniform, an Earth Force uniform anymore, because they changed their uniform. She's wearing her Army of Light uniform. She does hear the sound of Cole opening his weapon. And so she realizes that he's there. She attacks, knocks out one of the guards. Marcus drops from the ceiling to subdue the other one. Marcus says he doesn't believe in luck. He was just working on a hunch because this was the worst time for them to be discovered, is when they would be discovered. But then his weapon happens to hit the wall and knock open an access panel. So he doesn't believe in luck, but wow, that was sure coincidental happenstance. Ivanova sets to work, and we go back to the future. Sheridan's in a cell when he fades out of the future. Back in the past, Zathras notices him fading into what is their present, but then he fades back out again. It's kind of an in and out kind of thing. Sinclair and Delenn find their progress blocked by the presence of engineers, but by this time Ivanova is at the access panel and can create a diversion. Just as she begins, Delenn gets a strange sensation, she says, as if someone had just walked over my grave. Flashing back to the future, Sheridan reappears in the cell as the doors open, and the future Delenn is allowed into the cell with him. They embrace. She is very distraught, but she tells him their son is safe. In 2254, Ivanova makes the final connections and creates a fake hull breach alert on their level. She and Marcus leave to go meet up with Sinclair and Delenn while the engineers react to the alert and evacuate. That's when the pressure doors drop, cutting off the level from the rest of the station and giving our B5 heroes privacy that they need to do what they're going to do off screen from all the B4 people. 2278, Sheridan reveals to Delenn that he is from the past. He's not the John Sheridan that Delenn knows. Future Delenn remembers past Sheridan in their earlier stages of life talking about these events, and she makes the connection. She's very smart. She tells Sheridan that his future is going to be full of pain and trouble, and they're going to do good things, but there's going to be a lot of personal sacrifice. He wonders if there's some way he can prevent this, but she says not without making a greater price of surrender to the Shadows. And that's when the guards show up to take them to their deaths. But, surprise, instead of being executed, whenever Sheridan and Delenn meet Emperor Mollari in the throne room, he is very drunk, and he reveals that there is a keeper that cannot hold its liquor. And he had to make a performance earlier, but now that he's very drunk, he can be himself. Mollari offers them an opportunity to escape by following one of his guards to a getaway ship that he has planted. And in return, he says that they and their allies need to work to free his people. So after they leave, an older G'Kar with a patch over one of his eyes shows up and addresses G'Kar as old friend. Mollari tells him that his keeper is about to wake up, so they have unfinished business. G'Kar then starts to strangle Mollari, and the keeper awakens, forcing Mollari to strangle G'Kar back. At the same time, Sheridan and Delenn follow the guard down a corridor. Sheridan feels himself being drawn back in time. Before he disappears, Delenn gives him a warning that he must not go to Z'ha'dum. Back in the throne room, a lone figure arrives to find Mollari and G'Kar lifeless on the floor. That is Vir, who we have been told is going to be emperor after Mollari is emperor, and now he is standing over the dead body of Mollari. He picks up the medallion, and we'll talk more about that scene in a few minutes too. In the present day, 2254, Ivanova and Marcus are unloading equipment. Zathras is working by a spacesuit. He reveals that briefly he saw Sheridan and is working on using the suit to temporarily stabilize him. After finishing, he joins Ivanova and Marcus in unloading. They continue working. The suit sparks with energy and begins to fill up. They soon notice and realize that Zathras' jury rig is working. They open the helmet and reveal Sheridan inside. Sinclair joins them soon, wearing an identical spacesuit. In the spacesuits, Sheridan and Sinclair take the last components of the time system to Babylon 4's central power core. Aboard the White Star, Zathras cautions that the equipment is very delicate. Ivanova reports that she will create a fake fusion overload that should trigger an evacuation of the station. On Babylon 4, however, the crew notices a drop in fusion power and decide to increase power to compensate. When they do so, the power surge flows into the attached time system, causing the station to be caught in a time rift. Aboard the White Star, Zathras figures out what happened. The power surge caused the time system to trigger prematurely. He stabilizes it and they emerge back in normal space, but in the interim, Sheridan disappears again. Zathras reports they jumped ahead 4 years, and Cole immediately makes the connection. It's now 2258, the exact time the station appeared in by Babylon 5 back in the Babylon Squared episode. But now the time system is unstable and needs to be recalibrated. Ivanova tries to page Sheridan, but Sinclair reports he has disappeared again. Sheridan is having a very bouncy, timey-wimey day. Meanwhile, Ivanova's fake fusion overload finally reaches Babylon 4's CNC, and they make plans to evacuate. Another tachyon burst envelops the station. Delenn experiences a vision. She sees herself observing Sheridan asleep in bed on B5. Someone walks into the room, says hello in a female voice. When Delenn looks at her, what she sees shocks her enough that she drops her snow globe. When she reappears on Babylon 4, Zathras explains she experienced a time flash. It could be a glimpse of the future or the past caused by the unstable time system. Just then, Sinclair rejoins them and everyone is shocked. He appears considerably older. As they have moved 4 years forward, he has aged notably. Sinclair explains this is why he did not want Michael Garibaldi with him. Since he had been through the unstable time field 2 years ago without protection, re-exposure is now aging him. The same thing would have happened to Garibaldi. At this point, not even Zathras knows if Sinclair will keep aging as they continue to move forward. Sinclair insists that they press on. Since Zathras is lacking equipment to fix Sheridan's time stabilizer, Ivanova decides to lead him to a work area where he can find the necessary equipment. Sinclair decides to return to the power core to retune the time system, and the others return to the White Star to help him with readings. While Zathras rummages through the workroom, Lanier reports of incoming ships. Sinclair knows who they are. It's like about time they got here. It's himself and Garibaldi and the rest of the evacuation crew from Babylon 5 at the time. Meanwhile, Ivanova is separated from Zathras briefly, and when he finally finds the right tool and sets to work on the stabilizer, that's when B4 security confronts him, which brings him into the events of Babylon Squared. The security officers take him away. Marcus says that repairs to the time system will take another 2 hours. Ivanova sneaks into CNC. She hides as Major Krantz, and the past Sinclair and Garibaldi pass en route to Zathras' cell, and Delenn notices Sheridan's suit fading in again. Zathras meets past Sinclair and remembers the warning from earlier, telling him he is not the one. Meanwhile, CNC is evacuated and Ivanova slips into the recently abandoned observation dome. Soon after, she starts adjusting the power while Zathras tells about the mission to take B4 through time, just as Sinclair heard it 2 years ago. Just then, other B4 personnel see a spacesuit fade in and out, and word reaches Krantz and past Sinclair. Zathras follows with security in pursuit. They come upon the fading suit, and as before, past Sinclair tries to approach, but is knocked back whenever they touch hands. Zathras then rushes to it with the repaired stabilizer, hands it to the blue suit, and the suit takes it and disappears again. Just then, Ivanova starts feeding power to the time system. Zathras senses the system stabilizing, urges everyone else to leave, and back at the breach point, Marcus is startled to discover Sheridan nearby without his spacesuit. Then they notice that the stabilizer attached to him is intact, meaning someone swapped theirs for his broken one, leaving Cole to ask then who's running around out there in a blue suit. Meanwhile, events transpire as before. Zathras gets pinned by falling debris. He urges Sinclair to go, explaining he has a destiny. Meanwhile, outside, as the evacuation convoy leaves, President Sinclair tries to send a message to Garibaldi, "Watch your back." However, by now he's out of range. He proceeds through an airlock back into the station. Meanwhile, as before, the spacesuit returns to help Zathras, and he happily acknowledges the suit as the one. Then the suit opens its helmet, revealing Delenn inside, as Babylon 4 is drawn into the now stable time rift. Later, Sinclair removes his helmet, despondent that he could not change the near future, and Delenn there tells him it is time and leads him to CNC. Ivanova has finished rerouting the time system, controls to CNC so the rest of the ship can be controlled from B4. Sinclair then orders everyone else to return to the White Star, saying he'll start the system up and rejoin them later. Cole then confronts him, revealing that he suspects something Sinclair isn't telling them. Someone has to steer B4 all the way back to the past, and once there, there's no going back. So whoever this is will become trapped in the past. Pressed by Sheridan, Sinclair confirms Marcus's assumptions, and Marcus volunteers to go, but then Sinclair explains that he has to do it because he's the one who's always done it. He reveals that the whole thing that brought him here in the first place at the beginning of part 1, he got a letter from a box sealed 900 years ago addressed to him, but it's in his own handwriting. And Delenn tells them of her own letter in the same handwriting. Ivanova protests, but Sinclair insists. He knows what he must do. He asks Marcus and Ivanova to leave, leaving him, Delenn, Sheridan, and Zathras in the dome. He then asks Zathras to clear up this whole The One business, why he referred to both him and Delenn by that title. Zathras explains in detail that the Minbari believe in 3, with 3 languages, 3 castes, the 3 times 3 equals 9 of the Great Council. This belief in 3 extends to time as well, past, present, and future, combining into basically a trinity of the One. He then describes how each of them fits. Sinclair is the one who was, Delenn is the one who is, and Sheridan is the one who will be. And together they form the beginning and middle and end of a great story. Zathras urges Delenn and Sheridan to go and continue the story. His place will be with Sinclair to help begin the story, and they all say their goodbyes. Sheridan and Delenn reboard the White Star. With a heavy heart, Sheridan orders the ship to detach from Babylon 4 and set course back to 2260. Things are wrapping up with the White Star emerging from the time rift back in 2260. As they exit, the time rift closes and all temporal distortions in Section 14 cease. It's now regular space again like it was before Babylon Squared's events. Delenn reveals that this is not the only circle that is closing. She reminds him of the fact that human and Minbari souls began crossing 1,000 years ago. Her transformation into a part-human hybrid was part of an effort to correct this imbalance, but now she reveals an insight into what started it. The Triluminary that brought about her transformation back at the end of Season 1 with Chrysalis also came from 1,000 years ago. Someone had to present the station to the Minbari in the past, and they wouldn't have trusted a human. And that's when Marcus realizes that the phrase to describe Valen, a Minbari, not born of Minbari. So we see this playing out. In Babylon 4, in 1260, Sinclair assembles the Chrysalis device. He recalls the hints from the past, the Soul Hunter claiming he was being used, Delen's hint that the Minbari were right about him, and Nerun noting he talked like a Minbari. He knows what lies before him because he has already done it. He is soon enveloped in the Chrysalis. And later, 2 Vorlon ships keep station as Minbari cruisers arrive. 2 Minbari warriors board the station and are met by Zathras, who leads them to the central corridor, and there they discover 2 Vorlons outside their encounter suits. So they're big, glowy, like angel-looking things over empty encounter suits, and between them is another Minbari. This is Sinclair, who says, I welcome you and present this place to you as a gift. I am called Valen, and we have much work ahead of us. So, with apologies for the lengthy detail of that recap, lots and lots and lots happens in this episode.
Yeah, we could say that.
And not only are things happening in this episode in the course of events of Babylon 5, but we know, looking back on the production, that the events of this episode were intended for later on in the, the overall plot, and that changes need to be made. And I'm assuming that changes need to be made because Michael O'Hare was no longer here to play Jeffrey Sinclair. What he had intended for Jeffrey Sinclair probably got altered, in some ways. Sheridan is here as somebody. Delen, I don't know. There's a lot that not only happens, but also a lot that would have happened. And I want to talk about all of it. So, I don't know where to start. I did a lot of talking already. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, I want to start pulling out the other threads that they didn't point out that had been there from the beginning. We said in Interludes and Examinations, yes, that is the episode where Kosh died. JMS had planned it later, but when he was writing it, he felt Kosh's voice in him saying, no, now is the time. Had Kosh been killed later, after this episode, we would have learned that Kosh was one of those 2 Vorlons who were outside their encounter suits with Valen.
Oh, okay.
In the special edition of The Gathering, I didn't realize it was just the special edition when I covered it the first time. But when we covered The Gathering, I mentioned that there is alien dialogue that uses the name Valen. That is when the Minbari in the changeling net that looks like Sinclair greets Kosh coming out of his ship in the flashback with Lita Alexander. When Kosh extended the hand outside the encounter suit, that's why he remembers fighting alongside Valen and recognized him, and he reached out to greet him. That's why his hand was out of the encounter suit to be poisoned in the first place.
Oh, wow. That's a deep cut connection. I mean,
Yeah.
by that I mean that, like, that level of planning of the overall mythology and how the past, present, future are all going to interconnect way back in the very first pilot film. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I think that might have been inserted just for the pilot, because like I said, JMS has published most of his original 5-year plan. Now, this is a document in volume 15 of the script books. I'm not going to go into it in great detail, partly because it still has spoilers, and partly because JMS really wanted volume 15 to be a special thing. That's one that was not up for sale. To get volume 15, you had to show that you had purchased the first 14 volumes, and then you would get a copy at no additional cost, including free shipping, signed by JMS. So that's how we get it. In there, we've got the original outline, which was originally seen only by JMS and Michael O'Hare. We wanted to make sure that the story held up. In that outline, when we had sort of the events of War Without End. So, I mean, going through it, the first 3 seasons, aside from swapping Sheridan with Sinclair, play out pretty much the same way. I don't recommend reading it if you have access to it, because it reveals motivations that have not been revealed to us yet.
Okay.
But it's all consistent, and it's really here where things start to diverge, because this thing where they reconnect with Babylon 4 would have been during the 5th season, and they would have ended up taking Babylon 4 not into the past but the future. So there would have been events that broke up Sinclair and Catherine Sakai. So Sinclair and Delenn would have been together they would have had a child, and their child was going to be the religious figure of a new era. So not Valen, but a new Valen for the future. And that would have played out in a spin-off call or sequel series called Babylon Prime, which would have been the new name of Babylon 4. So way back when he covered The Gathering with Paul Spataro, and he said that as far as he could see, the main thing that Babylon 5 or that Deep Space Nine had that Babylon 5 didn't have was that messianic leader. Well, that was coming from the Babylon 5 plans too. I just had to bite my tongue on it because we didn't know it then. So even though at that point they thought Sinclair would last, the plan was for Sinclair and Delenn to have a child that became the new version, not necessarily Valen, but the next Messiah to carry them forward.
So was Sinclair becoming Valen also going to happen?
No, Sinclair's story arc ended in the future. He did not travel in the past. So I think it was Michael O'Hare's departure that ended up with him becoming Valen. So we can come back for this two-parter and wrap it up in a different way.
Okay, so then my question is, how did Kosh recognize Sinclair as Valen in The Gathering?
Like I said, I think that was only for the special edition, which was put together between seasons 4 and 5.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay. So there were edits made to The Gathering as the special edition that, all right, I did not realize what you were saying there. Gotcha. So as it was originally created and filmed, the connections between Kosh and Sinclair were not part of it. But as it was, whenever they like trimmed down the alien sector footage and did a couple other things along the way, they inserted a little bit of dialogue with Kosh.
Yeah, they inserted about 4 or 5 alien words.
Okay.
And that's all it took that wasn't originally there.
And you wouldn't have known it because you're watching it new.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never actually seen the original version because I found the series on DVD, which at least the DVD sets I have only have the original version or only have the special edition.
Gotcha.
And when we get to the end of season 4, we'll explain in more detail why that special edition exists and what happens there.
Okay.
Because there's some definite behind the scenes going on.
Gotcha.
So yes, there always would have been a messianic figure, but it would have been not Valen, but a new messianic figure going through into the future.
All right. So that's a little bit different of a shape of things than I was expecting, but it is kind of cool to know. Also, the whole, knowing how the whole Sinclair and Catherine and Delenn triangle was going to go is interesting. Obviously, none of that is spoiler territory because the story is going to take a different direction. Catherine Sakai no longer exists on screen as a character. We're going to find out her fate in a novel at some point soon. And as I've been rewatching season 1 with Mindy, that's one of the things I've wondered about is what would Sinclair and Catherine and Delenn have done? Because even in season 1, the hints of Sinclair and Delenn becoming a couple are there. In Parliament of Dreams, even whenever they make the joke about, the fake marriage ceremony. It's like, depending on how seriously people take it, someone just got married today. So yeah. Okay. Interesting. Let's talk about blue spacesuits.
Okay.
So in Babylon Squared, you have the mysterious blue spacesuit person showing up in and out of time, and Zathras gives him the time stabilizer, and he fades away. And that's the one. Whenever Zathras sees Sinclair young, he's like, you're not the one. But when he sees the spacesuit, he's like, you are the one. Now, the way Babylon Squared was filmed, that blue spacesuit fades away. And the next time we see the blue spacesuit, it takes off its helmet and it's Sinclair, old. And Delenn greets him, but we don't see that it's Delenn. We just see her hand and we hear her voice. If you listen at all carefully, you can figure out that it's Delenn, but you don't know that for certain.
Yeah, and they were also, for that one, they were expecting you to recognize the voice. They didn't want to reveal the transformation that she hadn't done yet.
Oh, that's right. So it was not so much they were obscuring the character, they were obscuring the look. Okay, that makes sense. Here, the blue spacesuit that pulls Zathras off, or pulls the rubble off of Zathras, takes off its helmet, and it's Delenn. And it's another blue spacesuit that takes off its helmet, and it's Sheridan. So the idea that Delenn was also in the suit, was that a new addition?
Yeah, so for that one, he was toying with the idea of having multiple people. When they filmed Babylon Square, they only had the one blue suit, and their question was who was in it. So when he was doing War Without End, they said, well, let's keep it interesting and introduce a second suit so people don't have an answer to that question as soon as it shows up on screen.
Okay.
So the interpretation of the one was always there. But, you talked about how, that's why he introduced the second suit, but he doesn't say whether he came up with that idea when he was writing War Without End or whether that was always the plan when he was doing Babylon Squared. Because at that point, they already knew there were issues with O'Hare, and they were thinking they were going to replace him because that was done late enough in season 1. So the interpretation of the one is having those 3 parts with the 3 Minbari. That was already part of the plan.
Okay. And then the third person, they didn't have well, I guess, yeah, because the Delenn and Sinclair and their hypothetical replacement of Sinclair, because that might have happened, yeah. We got flashbacks in part 1 to a flash forward in Babylon Squared of Sinclair and Garibaldi gunning people down while the station blows up. Mm-hmm. And Sinclair said, not this time. So I'm a little bit confused on that, because that felt like most of the time stuff in this story feels like they are doing what I call holistic view of time travel mechanics, which is the way things happen or the way things always happened. But it also feels like he's trying to change events there. And so the whole keeping Garibaldi from coming along, was that to prevent that flash forward from ever being possible?
He left Garibaldi behind because the effects that were aging him could have aged
Right, that's
Garibaldi
what they say on
too.
the screen.
Yeah.
How does that relate to that flash forward?
So the flash forward, when he was saying not this time, it's because that is a possible future.
Okay.
So their future's not written yet. So yes, if B4 succeeds in the past, he becomes Valen, he moves forward. But when they were looking at it in part 1, that assault, when the station was attacked, was supposed to be 8 days from then. So had the mission failed, they'd not gone into the past, the shadows would have been stronger. Sinclair would have stayed on the station to help with the coming attack.
Okay, that was the future that also involved Ivanova dying and the station exploding. Okay, I kind of wish that had been made more explicit on the screen, but that's okay. That makes sense, though. So the future that he saw in Babylon Squared of him and Garibaldi fighting people off of the station was the future that would have happened if they didn't do their time travel, which is what part 1 leads off with. Okay.
Yes.
I did rewatch Babylon Squared, and I did look very carefully. In Babylon Squared, there's a shot where a sort of door-like aperture in the wall is being lasered open, like the hole, like cutting, the line of a hole in the wall. Mm-hmm. And as it falls and light is pouring through, you can see the hint of a long, narrow appendage in the smoke, like one of the Shadow's arms or legs or whatever they are. So like it's very faint and it's very quick, but it's neat to see that it's there, because at that point in time, we did not know what the Shadows looked like. So he wouldn't have done anything very obvious, but he did something to hint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Emperor Londo. Way back in season 1 is where Londo said that he had a dream that he was going to die with his hands around G'Kar's throat.
Yeah, season 1, episode 1, in fact. Midnight on the Firing Line.
Yes. And here we see it happening.
Yep.
Now, we're not going to go with this being a possible future, right? Since they actually did the time travel and averted the bad timeline where Babylon 5 dies, or at least dies then the future stuff we're seeing here is, I don't know if you can actually comment on that, but I'd like to think that they're treating now everything as this is the timeline and we're just moving back and forth along it.
Yeah, from the perspective of the characters, this is still a possible future, but it is one that the writers seem pretty committed to.
Yeah. He and G'Kar have somehow reconciled their differences along the way. G'Kar is missing an eye, which is always a good way to show that war has been bad to somebody. When I was watching, did not notice a visual of Londo's keeper but in the description online, it says that it's wrapped around his throat there. So did I just miss something obvious, or was it kind of subtle in the framing, or what?
It was not visible in part 1 or the early part of part 2. It's actually only visible when Londo knocks it out with the alcohol. So if you go back and just rewatch the scene where he explains to Delenn and Sheridan what's going on, when he leans forward, it is visible on his shoulder.
Okay.
So it's not very big. I mean, I had a Yorkshire Terrier that was bigger. So, yeah. So it is there. It basically covers the shoulder. There's a couple tendrils coming to his neck. And when he and G'Kar are choking each other, they've got a close-up of the eye opening. And that's when Londo starts fighting back, is when that keeper wakes up.
Okay. I missed some of those details when I was watching. Probably ADHD. I was looking away from the screen or something. Whenever they have succeeded in killing each other, or at least apparently succeeded in killing each other, the Veer comes into the room and picks up the medallion, and he's frowning, and I could not tell. Like, Veer has always seemed to be a pleasant person, but it seems possible that over the course of the next 17 years, he might become a not so pleasant person, and I couldn't tell if he was angry, upset, vindictive, sad, or what, as he looked down at the dead Londo. I'd like to think that he, present day Veer would just be sad to see Londo gone, but future Veer might be a bad person. Is there anything there that you feel like you can comment on?
Yeah. Babylon 5 doesn't like a status quo. So it's always a safe bet that people will change. The question is how much, in which direction. So yeah, I'm not committing either way. So yeah, there's definitely possibilities, especially after 17 years of misery on Centauri Prime.
Yeah.
So yeah, safe to say everyone changes. The question is how much change are we actually going to see?
I figured you'd probably play it close to the vest because you're like that.
And you don't really want me to tell the answers. You want to discover them as we go because you're like that.
Probably. Okay. Delenn and Sinclair have a son. It is not the future Messiah son that Delenn and Sinclair would have had, unless it is, and you're just not saying so. Oh, Londo accused Sheridan of going on a crusade, and we have a spin-off series coming up called The Crusade. Is that an intentional link of names, or am I drawing a link that's not supposed to be there?
For the amount of the spin-off that we got, it's not clear, but that also had a 5-year plan, and we didn't see all of year 1. I have to go through and reread the 5-year plan to see if it is coincidental or not.
Okay.
So any connections are not obvious in the 13 episodes we actually get.
That's sad. I get sad whenever there's a story, an ongoing story that doesn't get its chance to see its full fruition. I will always miss the third Amazing Spider-Man film that we never got. That will always be an opportunity cost for me.
Yeah, I was really looking forward to that one too.
Yeah.
And I know you are more upset than I that we didn't get all of Zack Snyder's vision for the Justice League.
Yeah, the very, very happy that we got his version of the Justice League film. I watched that under the full realization that films 4 and 5 would never come to exist. But it's not just films 4 and 5. If you watch that Justice League film and see all of the universe that it sets up, the spin-off characters, there's so much potential of a universe that just didn't get made, because he wanted to seed, he seeded the Atom, some of the stuff that he did get followed up on because we got like a Wonder Woman couple of films and the Aquaman couple of films and stuff, but we didn't get a Flash film like what we might have gotten if they had moved earlier. Anyways, there's a lot of potential in that third film that ended up not getting fulfilled, but that's okay.
Yeah, that happens with projects sometimes. Like, I remember hearing a thing from a convention. A fan asked Nathan Fillion what's one thing he wishes he could do on Firefly but didn't get the chance, and Fillion's answer was season 7.
Yeah. The other side of that coin is sometimes things end when they're still in their prime and they never have a chance to go too long, because there are some things that definitely have gone too long. But
oh yeah, the Whovian in me is looking at particular showrunner of Doctor Who did some wonderful things and ran out of his wonderful ideas about 8 years before he actually left the show. That's the classic series. But
yeah. What else can we talk about? Ivanova and Marcus are here, but they're basically there to help the plot mechanics move along. They have a couple of charming moments, but nothing. Ivanova's trauma in the first episode isn't really followed up on in this. In fact, you can kind of forget that alternate timeline exists as we're going through this episode. What else? What are some other story points that you want to talk about? I know that as we've gone through season 3, you become more and more reserved on what you feel like you can comment upon.
yeah, because things are building and they are really coming up to our season finale, and the season finales in B5, as we have seen, are not small.
Mm-mm.
No, they like to really go big for the finales. Any other show, this could have been the finale, but no, there's more to come.
Mm-hmm.
But we are getting to the point where there's a little less foreshadowing and a little more, hey, remember those bits that were foreshadowed? Here's where they paid off. So we are shifting in that direction as we pass the halfway point. There's still more to come. There will still be foreshadowing right to the end, because going into season 5, they knew Babylon 5 Crusade was coming. So things are there to set up the sequel series, which is a very different sequel series than what was in this original plan. It is not Babylon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
There are elements of Babylon Prime that end up in the original. In this planning document, there's, I think, 1 or 2 paragraphs on page 8 on this 8-page document, and the Babylon 5 planning starts about halfway through page 6. So a lot of the major details are omitted. It's really Sinclair's arc, and it just touches on what's happening with Garibaldi. Right, I don't even know if it mentions Ivanova or Franklin that much. Mm-hmm. So even though those things were planned, this was shared with O'Hare and O'Hare alone, because he was kind of the spine that brought it together at that point.
When did Michael O'Hare see it? Was it at the very beginning of the show?
It was very, very early. The way it's described, I would say it's probably between The Gathering and Midnight on the Firing Line.
Okay.
So we do know some about Londo and G'Kar, including this scene we saw here with the Keeper and how Londo releases him. That, I said, a lot of what we've seen in the series didn't make it, because that summary is, that 5-year plan is just so short. But this made it there.
Gotcha.
So it doesn't mention Vir becoming emperor, but we do know, yes, Londo gives them a chance to survive. G'Kar comes in. It's basically G'Kar-assisted suicide until the Keeper wakes up, and then it's a mutually assured destruction kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Keeper concept was interesting, because at this point in the history, we know that Londo is working with the Shadows, and that they're exploiting his emotions to keep their hold on him. And it feels like it would make sense for in the future for them to still have a hold on him. So it doesn't explicitly say my Keeper is because of the Shadows, but that seems to be a natural conclusion. Either way, he's ruling over the Centauri Empire, but not really.
Yeah, he is the figurehead, but he's not entirely in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's, he is the captain of the ship, but he's not the one steering it.
But Vir did not have a Keeper attached to him, so there's a possibility of change after that, depending upon who exactly Vir is in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's at this point it does appear Emperor Vir will be steering things the way Emperor Vir wants to steer things. Which direction that is remains to be seen.
Right. I might be running out of ideas.
Yeah, so I'm just going to throw out a question for you. Did you see the Valen reveal coming at any point in this episode?
Not even a little bit. Of course, when they start actually telling that part of the story with the whole Minbari who's not a Minbari, and they do all the, I thought maybe before he actually walked on the screen, but it was all still like, one big moment of, oh my gosh, wow. So yeah, Sinclair being Valen did not even occur to me one whit before seeing this episode.
Okay, so you started putting it together after Marcus says, oh dear God, a Minbari not born a Minbar.
Yeah. So basically, whenever the script starts to say Sinclair is Valen, my brain was starting to but that's what you're supposed to do. So yeah, that was really, really cool. Did not expect it. The shot of him between the two Vorlons was also unexpected. Obviously, we got like tidbits of how all that played out. We didn't actually see like a sequence of events of Sinclair going back and then changing and then we didn't see all of his part of that story. So I am curious about a couple things, like how he met up with the two Vorlons and got them to help him and everything else. I don't know if that's a story we're going to get told, but...
Not on screen, so I will share it here. It's one of those things, again, the backstory we would have had Kosh survived past this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, so when Sinclair goes back, he becomes Valen. He sends out a message that was deliberately designed to get the Vorlons' attention. Those Vorlons came, he explained it all to them, so they knew that he was actually transformed human from the future. And then, but he got them first to help win the Minbari over. Because if he shows up with the two Vorlons who are helping in this war, but had, for political reasons, were not as closely tied to the Minbari at this stage as before, but the Minbari regretted that change. Seeing him with those Vorlons really helped win things over. So,
yeah, having the Vorlons there would have, I can tell how that, would have gone a long way towards gaining the other Minbari's trust. But yeah, just.
Yeah. So yes, this has been the first episode of the podcast. I had been warning about a Clark Kent Superman type reveal in the credits. That's the one.
Okay. So without saying what it is, there is a future character development that I shouldn't know about, that I have been minorly spoiled on. And it hasn't happened yet. But every time you've made that reference, that's what I thought you were referring to. And if you want to know, I can tell you off mic. But yeah, there is another character name situation that I could have conceived as being revealed in a character description listing that you would want to keep secret from spoiler-free people. But anyways, anything else that you wanted to bring forward? Because I feel like I've asked my questions and I've talked about the things I want to talk about. I haven't actually commented a lot on the episode itself as an experience, but I did a lot of that last time. I love time travel stuff, and the whole continuity thing and playing with the future and tying in the past and all of that just pushes all of my buttons. And yeah, it was a fantastic two-parter.
Yeah, like I said, any other series you'd expect this two-parter to have been, the last episode of a season and the first episode of the next. It's that kind of deal, right? Or, maybe both at the end of one season. It could have gone either way. You don't expect this to be happening in May when your season finale is still 5 episodes down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Because now, when this is not your season finale, it raises the stakes. Because everyone expects, at this point, the season finale to be the biggest episode of the season. That was the TV expectation at the time. And that's what the creators felt they had to deliver. So that should tell you a little bit of what these next 5 episodes are going to be like. Or at least the 5th one down the road. Because yeah, this is the season where, I mentioned season 1, I was doing an episode a week to get through it. Season 2 is more like a disc at a time. And season 3 is where, like, I bought this the Tuesday it came out. I went home, thought, I've got time to watch one disc before bed. And then I wouldn't let myself put in disc 4. Which was, or no, I put in disc 4. I made myself stop at disc 4 and go to work. At 4 episodes per disc, I sat down that night, binged it, and made myself stop after World Without End Part 1. And then went to work and came back and started with Part 2 and finished the season.
Wow.
Because that was episode 16. It was tough. So yes, this is where we are in very, very high gear here. And this series really does not slow down, at least through the end of season 4. It slows down a bit at the start of season 5 and then picks up again. But yeah, we've got quite the ride coming for the next year and a bit.
Well, good. because I want to ride.
Yeah, we are getting there. So
that, I guess, brings us into our segments here at the end of the episode. Last best hope. I'm going to cheat on this, really, and throw the entire episode at it. No, I'm not. Most of the time with these character moments, I choose something with emotional weight. And I guess for this, I'm going to have to choose something with continuity weight, and that is the reveal of Sinclair being Valen. I could, as a runner-up, mention Delenn dropping the snow globe when she sees whatever woman she sees, because that's something huge and hurtful for her. But aside from that, we're going to go with Sinclair being revealed to be Valen. That's my last best hope.
yeah, that's just one of those things that has drawn so much of this series together. You see things that were seeded in season 1, how it's all coming in. Like, I'm with you on that one. I'm also a big X-Files fan. Thankfully, I'd already been through the DVDs. You know, there's people in an X-Files group, and they were talking about, you know, possible spoilers for season 10 when X-Files returned. And one of the people in the group said, I've seen Sinclair become Valen. I can't be spoiled on anything anymore. She's like, you know, I have seen the biggest event in the history of television. You can't break anything for me. So
that's funny.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that if you're fans of the series, you don't know what's coming, which is why I've been so adamant from the start about avoiding the IMDb listings. Because, you know, had you checked it with The Gathering and saw Michael O'Hare as Jeffrey Sinclair / Valen, you would have been, oh, when does that happen?
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, as you said, when Marcus goes, dear God, I've been Bari, not born a Minbar. Because honestly, I don't think anyone could have actually deduced it. People might have, you know, just randomly guessed, but I think the earliest you could deduce it would have been earlier in the episode when Ivanova reminds us that Linear describes Valen that way and wondering if they're going to meet him. Right. I think that is the soonest you might be able to say, wait a minute, you know, when they give you that reminder.
And they've used the phrase Minbari, not born a Minbar, to describe Valen in earlier episodes, but there just wasn't enough of any sort of connection to any other context to give that meaning, the meaning that it has here.
Yeah, like earlier on, most people were just assuming it would be like, you know, Garibaldi, who was a human not born of Earth. He was born on Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It could have been something that trivial as just, oh yeah, he was born in the colony world. But no, it's way beyond that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have to say that's not just my high point of the episode. That's one of the high points of the series.
So that brings us to giving form to the dream. And we've had to kind of shift the meaning of this segment as the series has gone along. So instead of, you know, what's hinting at the future, we're going to talk about, is there anything that is not obviously setting up, you know, the next episode or the ongoing plot lines? Is there stuff that we might have missed that we should pay attention to?
Yeah, I think, again, this is a case where it's hard to miss because most of what's feeding into the future would be that, you know, Sinclair is now 1,000 years in the past. We are not reasonably going to expect to see him pop up again.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest, these are flash forwards. And knowing the way B5 is structured, they're not going to flash forward to something that's not important and show it on screen. So, yeah, I mean, the one thing that might be subtle is when we see Delenn's flash forward and the person who speaks with a female voice says, hello, Delenn's awake and Sheridan's asleep. So there's some meaning there, but yeah. So again, if you haven't already done it, we won't know who that is until later this season. So if you haven't checked the IMDb already, don't. I think
we've belabored the point.
Yeah, we have, but yes. But I think that's the last major spoiler of this type. So,
alrighty. Well, that leads us into what is happening next time. And there is not going to be an episode next week because we're entering another recording break. So probably going out on the biggest bang of any recording break to date. even though this is technically not the end of the season, all the other shows are ending their seasons right now. So it's almost like it's just a technicality that's not the end of the season. Because Voyager ended this week with the Kazon stranding the ship on some remote planet. And Deep Space Nine is ending next week with Odo getting sick and going to the Great Link and getting stripped of his shape-shifting abilities. So those are both ending. It's May. And the show's not going to be coming back until September. So yeah, even though it's not the end of a season, it might as well be. What are we going to be doing in the summer? I'm so glad you asked. We have a lot actually to do this summer. So we will be back in about a month to talk about the next novel in the range of tie-in novels, which is The Touch of Your Shadow, The Whisper of Your Name. And if you hear that word shadow and you think, oh, it ties into the shadows. No, it doesn't. We will talk more about that in a month. We're also coming up on a feedback episode soon, so do please be sending in your feedback for the show so far. We'll have that in July. We're going to have the next novel in the range, novel 6 Betrayals. And it's been a while since we did this, but one of the things we wanted to do on this show was take little special episodes to talk about other things that J. Michael Straczynski worked on mostly for television during his career. And we did a He-Man special, in the days of old. We are going to do a She-Ra special this summer. And if all goes well, we'll have a guest for that as well, talking about, because JMS wrote 9 episodes of that show, but also had his hands in the creation and development of it. So She-Ra, at least for the first season, is very much, partly his baby. So we will be looking at that this summer as well. So lots of things to happen. And then way down the road on September 30th, we'll come back with Walkabout. But yeah.
Yeah, and when we come back with Walkabout, we're actually going to be back for a while. Because we'll have the last 5 episodes of this season leading directly into season 2. So when we do come back with episode coverage, we're coming back with 9 consecutive weeks of episode coverage.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know when the last time was that we had 9 consecutive weeks. I'm actually flipping through things right now just to see. I don't think we've ever had. Okay, yes. If you count The Gathering as an episode and the first 8 episodes of season 1, that is our last time we had 9 consecutive episodes of broadcast release. So I guess contiguous is a better word than consecutive because they're all stuck together. But yeah, so that's all coming down the pike. And then 9 episodes of season 3 and 4. And yeah, in the meantime, since we are having a feedback special this summer, you should definitely write in your feedback, your thoughts on the episodes, and your thoughts on our thoughts on the episodes. And how can they do that, Blaine?
Well, one way is to send an email to babylon530yearslater@gmail.com using whatever combination of letters and numerals you're happy with, as long as it's not leet speak. Right? You don't just want to replace random E's with 3s. That won't work.
There's an episode of Ultimate Marvel Comics, an issue of Ultimate Marvel Comics, where one of the characters, that's how they talk. And I'm like, that really dates this comic so bad. I think it's in the Ultimate Power stuff. Anyways, so yes, you can also leave comments on the websites where the show is posted. My website is johnreadscomics.com, and all of my episodes of all of my various shows are there. And you can leave a comment on this or any other posting, and there is no H in shows. Oh, wait. Yes, there is.
You can also leave comments at Bureau42.com, which is where all of my podcasts are hosted.
And you can leave a review in whatever podcatcher you are listening this in, if it supports reviews. Apple Podcasts supports reviews, and if you leave a review there, we will see it, we will read it, we'll thank you for it. If you leave a review somewhere else, we may not see it. And if you would like us to read it and thank you for it, just let us know that you did so.
And then you can also leave comments on the YouTube channel, which seems to have some conversations going as well. So if you feel like leaving comments, you can do so there. And that's the last of the effective ways to get a hold of us. So, yeah, we will be back covering book 5. There's 9 numbered books and then 3 trilogies. So there are 18 novels total. If you wish to read Book 5 on archive.org, you may. As we've said before, there are 18 novels. This one is definitely in the top 20. So,
Yep. All right. So we'll be back in a month to talk more about that. In the meantime, everybody, thank you very much for listening.
And good eating to you.